talk today about a project called Heterodyne, which is an initiative that I just launched at the beginning of this month, and it came about as a result of a funded campaign. So the project's called Heterodyne, and what that entails is the creation of original new pieces of music for roads and for other infrastructure. So last night someone asked me what the word meant, and its definition is to combine a high frequency signal with another to produce a new frequency equal to the sum or difference of the two. So what that means in the case of Heterodyne is imposing new pieces of music upon roads so that as drivers drive along it, they can listen to something that was made for that space and see how that alters their experience of it. So Nolene had some really nice quotes there, and I was looking for something to sum up what Heterodyne is about and what it's trying to create. And I was reading a Lebanese author called Galal Tufik recently. And he has this quote which is, "Inducing of the canny should not be limited to radio or TV, but has to be done in life." So the idea of Heterodyne really is this idea of inducing the uncanny. So it's creating purposefully a kind of coincidence in your environment to see how that influences your subjective experience of place. So just to tell you a little bit about the first version of Heterodyne, it was made for the military road in Wicklow, which is a road that travels, it actually starts at Collins Barracks and it goes out through Rathfarnham and through the Sally Gap, through the Wicklow Mountains and ends at Okavana Military Barracks. So I was brought to that road by the owner of the barracks, and I was really struck by how isolated and cinematic the environment there is, and I thought it would be a really ideal place to start with this idea of scoring. So I asked 5 composers, Caoimhín O'Rahillig, Cian Nugent, Checkerboard, Brendan William Jenkinson and Arrow Shower to each create a piece of music. The way that that practically works is I record a video of the road and then choose a certain time for that and ask them if they'll make a piece of music for it. Then in between each of those pieces of music there's an ambient score of field recordings by a sound editor called Tygo Sullivan. So because the theme of this is passionately curious and the inception of ideas, I wanted to tell you a little bit about how Heterodyne came about. And really it started in 2009 when I went on a trip to Iceland, and I was with a group of friends and we had the opportunity to exhibit work in a gallery in a small fishing village called Skagastrund. So we rented a car to drive up to this town, and before we went into a little local record shop in Reykjavik and we bought a collection of Icelandic music. And then when we rented the car and started to drive, we pressed play and listened to this collection of CDs. And while we were driving, it just seemed uncanny. It had this feeling as if the music had been made for exactly the road that we were driving on. Like sometimes there would be a turn in the road and you'd feel as if the music was actually made to complement that. And it created this incredible moment, this momentary feeling. And for me, much more than the experience of Reykjavik or the experience of Skagastrund where we arrived, the actual journey and the road became the most memorable part of the trip. And it got me thinking about this idea of generally how we perceive life, and looking at one site that we begin at and a destination that we try to go to. Perhaps if we could make these things that actually emphasize the in-between part, the road itself, that maybe it would enhance our experience of everything. So in future with Heterodyne, what I'm looking to do is to create an app which is in development right now, and then also to make a series of radio documentaries where the research that I put into the actual construction of the roads is then disseminated, as well as new piece of music being made. In 2010, I had another experience that was very influential in it, where I was working on a research project in Brown University on the I-95 highway, which is the road that runs from Cape Cod in North America down to Florida, and it goes all along the coast of Northeast America. And there was a section of it in Providence, Rhode Island that was scheduled to be demolished. So the project I was doing was creating an archive of local people's experiences of that road that was about to be demolished, when it had been built originally, and how its demolition would actually affect them as it happened. So the first research project started with the Cape Verdean community of immigrants who had been working as longshoremen in Providence and then been dislocated when the initial motorway was built. And then it was moving into how that now defunct motorway was being used and reinterpreted by people, and ultimately how its demolition would affect people that had been brought to rely upon it. So again, looking at roads, I just found that there was this incredible backstory to them. And even though they're this sort of in-between part of our lives that we don't really consider, their creation and their infrastructure says so much about power and society and the sites of influence. So just going back to the quote, inducing of the uncanny, Heterodyne really is about this idea of just taking a moment to reinterpret a space. And music, as I'm sure you all appreciate, can do that so powerfully, whether it's the way that you experience a place when you listen to something on your CD player, or the way you listen to a particular piece of music at a certain state of mind, and that can change you. Heterodyne really is about trying to do that in a collective way, and then also work with musicians to give them a new constraint to work with. So when I'm actually working on it with the musicians, I give them this piece of video and we can talk about the road and I tell them about the research, but ultimately their actual creation of the work is entirely up to them. So it offers them this chance to experiment as well. So right now I'm looking at a number of sites throughout Ireland and also in Istanbul to create the next set of scores for roads and developing this app. And it's really exciting. I found that it is exciting both for the listeners and for the musicians as well. So this document I have here is the pack that we made for the military road, which is available in a limited edition, but I'm hoping to make more for the next sites we do. So if you'd like to know more, the website is heterodyneprojects.com. Thank you.